Hello everybody. In this video we're going to demo the Magenta Kiwi ESXi server appliance. These are pre-configured servers that come with the VMware ESXi hypervisor already installed on them. You just plug them in, turn them on, and you are running a virtualization server. The appliance is available either in a small tower/desktop unit or in a 1U rack mount unit. These are clean, powerful units, very reliable, and best of all, very affordable. In this demo, we're going to configure the appliance for the first time. We will administer the appliance from a Windows computer. And finally, we will create a simple Windows 2012 R2 virtual machine. Okay, let's get started. Here we see the server booting the ESXi hypervisor. Now, it's important to note that the server actually ships with the 60-day trial of the full product. To convert it to a fully licensed, free hypervisor, you need to enter a license key. You have to get this key directly from VMware after registering an account. We show how to get the key in another video, but it's pretty easy to do. So it's important to understand that until you enter the free key, you have the full version. That includes the storage API, vMotion, and high availability. But once you enter the free key, you will lose those features. Also, if after 60 days you don't enter a key, the server will stop working. On a plus side, if you choose to purchase a full license, you can simply enter the provided key at any time and you will be automatically upgraded to that version without having to reinstall. Okay, so here we see the server fully booted. Press the F2 key to log in. Leave the login name set to root. Press enter and enter the password, which comes pre-configured as Magenta-1, all lowercase. Takes just a second to log in. And here we are. This is the main system customization screen. From this screen, we're going to do two things. We're going to configure the management network right here, which basically means we're going to give it an IP so we can remote into it from a Windows client. And then we're also going to enable SSH so we can do some further remote management. Okay, so from Configure Management Network, press Enter. Select Network Adapters. And here we see that the computer has two network cards and they're both disconnected. That's because we haven't plugged an Ethernet cable into this server yet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pause the video and we're going to plug in a Ethernet cable. Okay, we've plugged the Ethernet cable in. We still can't see it. We're going to press Escape to back out of the screen. And then we're going to go back in. And sure enough, now our network card is connected. If we had plugged it into the wrong port, we could select the other port, or we could simply move the Ethernet cable to the correct port. Escape to back out. And now we're going to enter an IP. Scroll down to IPv4 configuration and press Enter. By default, it's going to be configured to use a dynamic IP. But typically, you're going to want to have a static IP set up for your VMware server. Select static IP, scroll down, and now we're going to enter an IP address. Make sure to turn on the numlock key because it's always off. And now you can enter a IP address. For this example, we're going to use 192.168.1.1.20. Whoops, let's go back in. Enter a subnet mask. We're going to use 255.255.255.0. And a default gateway, we're just going to use 192.168.1.1. So very SMB-like setup for this example. Press Enter. Next, we're going to go to DNS configuration, and we're going to give it a DNS server. And just for this example, we're going to use the Google DNS of 8.8.8.8. We want to enter an alternate, normally you would, and we're going to leave the host name to localhost. We're not going to get into host names, but it's just a different way of accessing the server by name. Escape to back out. One more escape, and you will get prompted to save your changes. Y to save changes. And now, just out of habit, I always like to restart the management network. F11 to make it happen. OK to enter. And then we'd like to test the management network. And this is really just sending out a ping command, in this case to the router. And we see it's OK. The localhost failed. Don't worry about that. but this means that we can ping our router and our network is basically working. And that's it. We've configured our IP settings so that we can now remote into the server from a Windows client. Before we finish up though, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to go to troubleshooting options and we're going to enable SSH. Just select it and press enter. And now SSH is enabled. Press escape and escape one more time to log out. And that's it. We've configured our static IP on our ESXi server. And now from here, we're going to go over to a Windows client. Okay, so now we're back at our Windows client. We are done configuring the IP address on the ESXi server. And now we need some software so that we can manage it from this client. And to do that, we're going to launch a browser window. We're going to go to the IP address of the server. We're going to click on I understand the risk, add the exception, and then confirm the security exception. And we're brought to the welcome screen for the ESXi server. Next, we're going to click on the download vSphere client for Windows. And normally here you would say save file. It's a 342 megabyte file. But and it's actually downloading from VMware.com, so it's coming over the internet. But since we already have this file saved, we're going to cancel this and we're going to close. We're going to go to our downloads folder, and here's the file that we had already previously downloaded. We're going to go ahead and execute it. And first, it's going to extract itself, so this takes a little bit of time, and we're going to be doing this as we go through this process. We're going to pause the video right now while it's extracting. Okay, it's finished extracting, and now we're going to install it like any Windows application. The product we're installing here is the VMware vSphere Client 6.0. And we're going to say next, accept the license agreement, next, next, and then install. And again, we're going to pause the recording. And our installation has completed. And now we have this VMware vSphere client icon on our desktop. We're going to go ahead and run the program, and we're going to enter the IP address of our server. Our username is root. Our password is Magenta-1, all lowercase. And we're going to log in. And now we're presented with the security warning, certificate warning. We're going to, you only have to do this one time. We're going to install the certificate and do not display security warning for this IP. And then we're going to tell it to ignore. Takes just a second to connect. And here we have our ESXi vSphere client login. We're going to, since we're recording here in 720p, it's a little small, we're going to get rid of the task list. At this point, here's our server. We have no virtual machines. They would show up right here. We also haven't configured the hard drive yet for basic use. So this would be the getting started, configuration, storage. And we can see right here that it doesn't see any storage. We have to add the storage. So we're going to click on Add Storage. We can add disk LUN or network file system. We're going to select disk LUN because we're adding local storage. Here it sees the 500 gigabyte. There's a 500 gigabyte SATA drive installed in this server. We're going to select it and press Next. Then Next. And now we're going to give it a name. We're just going to call it Data Store. Next, we're going to use the maximum available space. Next, and finally finished. Takes just a second to create. And here is our data store. We can right-click on it and browse the data store. And right now there really isn't very much there. We're going to create a new folder, and this will make sense once we get going. We're going to call it ISO. And then we're going to go into the ISO folder. And what our goal here is going to be is to create a Windows 2012 R2 virtual machine. When we create the machine, it's just a shell. We're going to have to install the server OS in it, and we're going to need to install from a Windows ISO file. So we're going to upload a file, and here's a copy of the 180-day evaluation version of 2012 R2 that we got from Microsoft for free. And we're going to upload it. Now this is going to take a couple minutes, so we're going to pause the video. Okay, our file has finished uploading, and here we see it. So we're going to close our data store browse. And finally, we're at the point where we're going to create our first virtual machine. We select the server, and we select New Virtual Machine. We're going to do a typical machine. We're going to give it a name. We're going to say Next. We're going to put the machine on the data store. And it's a Windows machine, and we're going to select Windows Server 2012. We're going to click Next. We're just going to leave it at one network card. Next. And now we're going to create a virtual hard drive. We can do thick provisioned, lazy, thick provisioned, eager, or thin provision. Thick provision actually goes out and creates, say, in this case, 40 gigabyte file on the data store. But we're going to do thin provision. It's going to create a much smaller file, and then that file will expand up to 100 gigabytes as we need it. Say Next, and then finally Finished. Okay, we've created a virtual machine, but it's not running, and it doesn't have anything in it. So we're going to select the machine, and when we turn this machine on, we're going to need to boot it off of that ISO file that we just uploaded so that we can begin the 2012 R2 installation. So now we're going to create that link between the virtual machine and the ISO file. We're going to edit virtual machine settings. Say OK to the message. We're going to select our CD DVD ROM drive. And then our device type is going to be data store ISO file. We're going to browse, go to the data store, go to ISO, select the file. And very important, we need to remember to tell it to connect at power on. Otherwise, it won't be connected when we power the computer on. We're going to say OK. And now we're going to right-click on the machine, and we're going to open the console. We're going to expand this a little bit. And again, because of our tight recording range here, 720p, we're going to have to do a lot of resizing, but the benefit is the video will look a little better. This little green button right here, power on, so this will power the virtual machine on. And now we see it booting off that ISO file just the way a physical server would boot off of a DVD. And here we are presented with the basic screen. One thing to note is that the mouse is kind of locked in within this window. You'll sense that it's a little bit awkward. If you look right here, it feels very weird. Later we're going to fix that problem with the installation of the VMware tools. This issue is further complicated by the fact that we're at a weird size. But we're just going to work our way through here. I'm going to use the keyboard a lot. Install now. But what we're going to do now is just a basic Windows 2012 R2 installation. Again, don't be surprised if the mouse acts a little bit bizarre in this environment. And now this portion of Windows takes a while, so we will again pause the video and we'll come back when this part is done. Okay, so it took a little bit of time, but now we're at our password screen. And we're logging into our server. we're going to go up here, VM, guest, send Control-Alt-Delete. And again, to get in and out of the window, I'm pressing the Control key and the Alt key at the same time. So here we are. I'm going to say no to the network for now. And again, the mouse is very awkward, but we're going to take care of that in a second. By default, the server is booting Server Manager, as it does normally. So we're going to close that out. And now again, Control-Alt to exit the window. We're going to go VM, guest, and we're going to install the VMware tools. This will fix a lot of driver issues from the machine running in a physical environment, but more importantly, it'll fix the mouse issue that the mouse gets stuck within the window. So we're going to install the VMware tools. And we should get a prompt here. So basically that just mapped the VMware tools to the DVD-ROM drive, and now we're running them off the DVD-ROM drive. It installs like any basic Windows application. And let me just, there we go. Again, the mouse is very awkward until we install these. Typical, and then install. This takes just a little bit of time. Well, no, okay, let's just wait it out. Not too bad. This will install specific virtualization drivers within the OS so that it works better as a virtual machine. Almost done here. And we're done. We're going to click Finish, and we're going to restart the virtual machine. And now we will pause the recording. Okay, and now the machine has rebooted, and now we can see that the mouse, we can actually move it around, we can scroll up and down, we can click within the window, VM, go to Guest, Control-Alt-Delete, we enter our password, and our response is much better. Installing the VMware tools is pretty much a must. We scroll up and down, I'm going to wait for the Server Manager to load here. But for all intents and purposes, we're all done here. We've installed our machine. We can actually close our console, and the machine is still running. We can even exit this program. We can reopen the console. There's our machine. We can close it. Normally we would leave this closed. And we're all done. We can even close the vSphere client. So that has been the demo of the ESXi server appliance from Magenta Kiwi. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much.